Brothers and sisters, people of Africa, people of the world, today I rise not to speak in riddles, not to speak in the polite language of diplomacy that hides knives behind smiles, but to speak plainly. They have put before us a so-called plan, presented by former American President Donald Trump, and they call it a peace plan for Gaza, for Palast, for the Middle East. They brand it with shining words, with polished presentations, with promises of prosperity and investment. But when you strip away the wrapping, when you look at its substance, you will see it is not peace. It is domination. It is humiliation dressed in the clothes of reconciliation. It is the forcing of one people to accept chains and then to be told those chains are bracelets of gold. And I tell you now, this is not peace. Peace is not when the stronger dictates every line and the weaker is expected only to sign. Peace is not when the suffering of a people is reduced to a bargaining chip for investors. Peace is not when their sacred rights are erased, their dignity negotiated away, their sovereignty postponed to the end of time. Peace is not the silence of the oppressed. It is the justice that allows them to stand tall. When Donald Trump put forward his Gaza peace plan, many rushed to applaud. Some said it was pragmatic, some said it was bold, some said at least it is something. But let me tell you, a poisoned cup remains poisoned no matter how beautiful the glass. A rotten fruit cannot nourish no matter how sweet it appears at first bite. I ask again, what kind of peace is this, where the occupier still keeps his boot pressed on the chest of the land, and yet the world is told to applaud as if justice has been served? What kind of peace is this, where the land is divided by walls, where checkpoints decide the rhythm of a people's life, where mothers cannot reach...
What a fiery beginning. Ibrahim Traoré wastes no time exposing the so-called peace plan for what it truly is. Not reconciliation, but domination. His words cut through the polished lies of diplomacy and reveal the harsh reality behind the glittering promises.
Hospitals in time, where they grow up under drones instead of open skies, and yet they are told they should be grateful for a deal. What kind of peace is this, where the dispossessed are told to accept crumbs while the thief feasts openly? Where the robbed man is offered a seat at the table only if he agrees to stop asking for his stolen bread? What kind of peace is this, where the solution is not born from the soil of Palast, not breathed from the voices of Gaza, not shaped by the will of its people, but written in offices in Washington, drawn on maps thousands of miles away? What kind of peace is this, when the future of a people is discussed without their presence, their signature demanded but their voice ignored? Is this not the old arrogance of empire, deciding for others, dictating to others, pretending to know what is best for others, while silencing the very people whose fate is being sealed? They call it the deal of the century. But I ask you, whose century is this? Whose deal is it? Is it the century of the oppressed, the people who have endured decade after decade of siege, blockade, exile, humiliation, yet still rise each morning with the unbroken will to exist? No, it is not their century. Is it the century of the citizen in Gaza who has never known a single day without fear, who falls asleep to the buzzing of drones instead of lullabies, who wakes up not to school bells, but to the sound of walls collapsing and neighbors screaming? No, it is not that century. Is it the century of the farmer, whose olive trees were planted by his ancestors, whose hands ache to touch the soil, yet he is forced to watch as bulldozers uproot them, as settlers burn them, as foreign soldiers trample them under their boots? No, it is not his century either. This deal is not written for the weak. It is not crafted for the refugee who has carried the key to his stolen home for 70 years, waiting for the day when he can return. It is not made for the grandmother who keeps that key tied in a cloth, showing it to her grandchildren as proof that justice must someday prevail. It is not designed for the prisoner who sits behind bars for daring to raise his voice. It is not designed for the mother who counts the names of her sons on gravestones. No. This deal is written for the powerful. This deal is written for the occupier who wishes to wash his hands of guilt while keeping the land he stole. This deal is for the politicians who sit in their palaces, who fly in private jets, who never once walked barefoot on the rubble of a fallen home, who never once inhaled the dust of a demolished neighborhood, who never once heard the cries of a people searching for his parents beneath collapsed walls. This deal is for the ones who live in air-conditioned halls, drawing borders with rulers and pens, moving lives and histories as if they were pieces on a chessboard. They sit at tables polished with marble, drinking wine as they decide the fate of millions, never once wiping away the blood, never once feeling the heat of the fires that burn. They dare to call this the deal of the century, but it is nothing more than the betrayal of a century. It is not a vision of peace, it is a contract of surrender. It is not the voice of the people, it is the echo of the powerful speaking to themselves. It is a deal for the strong to remain strong, for the thief to remain in possession, for injustice to be painted as stability. And they expect the world to clap, to nod, to accept this theater as reality. But reality is not built in Washington offices. Reality is written in the blood, the tears, the resilience of the people who live and die under occupation. They call it peace, but it is a peace of chains. It is not the peace of equal shaking hands. It is the peace of the jailer locking the cell and telling the prisoner to be quiet. It is the peace of silence forced upon the oppressed, not the peace of freedom chosen by the people. They call it peace, but what they offer is the stillness of graves, the quiet of suffocated voices, the illusion of calm built upon the screams of those who are silent. That is not peace. It is submission. It is domination with new clothes. They call it compromise, but what compromise is this? A true compromise requires both sides to give and both sides to gain. But here, only one side is told to surrender everything, its land, its sovereignty, its dignity, while the other side keeps all that it has taken by force. They call it compromise, but in reality it is confiscation, the legalized continuation of robbery. It is the master telling the servant, "Give me your last loaf of bread, and in return I will let you live another day." It is the thief telling the robbed, "Keep the corner of your house while I claim the rest." Is that compromise? No, it is the humiliation of one side disguised as negotiation. They call it realism, but what kind of realism is this? It is not the realism of justice, not the realism of coexistence, but the realism of empire. The realism that says might makes right, the realism that says the weak must bow before the strong. It is realism only for those who build walls and settlements, for those who command tanks and drones, for those who want to bury justice under layers of concrete and barbed wire. They call it realism because they have the power to redraw maps, but maps drawn by oppression are written in sand. The tides of history will wash them away. What is offered here is not peace. It is inequality carved into stone, a monument to injustice erected in the face of the world. They wish to write oppression into permanent law, to turn occupation into a normal condition, to declare exile as destiny. It is the attempt to sanctify theft, to place a seal of legitimacy on land stolen from its rightful people, to normalize the abnormal and to eternalize the temporary. They wish the world to believe that oppression can last forever, that dispossession can become permanent, that stolen homes can become legal homes. But no matter how many signatures they collect, no matter how many speeches they deliver, no matter how many billions they promise, truth cannot be buried forever. You cannot turn theft into law without turning law itself into a crime. You cannot make exile permanent without making humanity complicit in cruelty. You cannot baptize occupation with the language of peace and expect it to be accepted. They can rename it, they can decorate it, they can call it compromise, they can call it progress, they can call it stability, but oppression by any other name is still oppression. Chains wrapped in silk are still chains, and as long as those chains remain, there will be no peace, only resistance, only struggle, only the unyielding cry of a people who refuse to disappear. And let me tell you, rights are not the property of presidents to trade, not the gifts of empires to bestow. Rights are given by God, by history, by existence itself. The right of a people to live free on their land cannot be signed away in Washington, cannot be negotiated away in Paris, cannot be dismissed in Tel Aviv. No paper, no plan.
Listen carefully. Every line he speaks is a challenge to the arrogance of empire. He dismantles the illusion of compromise, showing how one side is forced to surrender dignity, land, and sovereignty while the other side keeps everything it stole. This is not negotiation. It is legalized robbery dressed as peace.
And no so-called deal of the century can erase the truth that Palace belongs to its people. And when you try to build peace on the erasure of truth, you do not build peace, you build only an illusion, a fragile lie waiting to collapse. The loopholes in this plan are wide enough to drive tanks through. One loophole is the illusion of statehood. They speak of offering Palost a state, but when you look closer, it is no state at all. A state without control of its borders, without control of its airspace, without control of its security, is not a state. It is a prison with a flag. They tell the people of Gaza, you will govern yourselves, but we will decide how you move, who you trade with, how you defend yourselves, what you can build, and even who you may call your allies. Is that sovereignty? Or is that the refined continuation of occupation under another name? Another loophole is the promise of economic miracles. They say billions of dollars will flow, investments will come, jobs will be created. But where have we heard this before? Here in Africa, we were told the same lies. They said, allow us to control your resources, allow us to dictate your policies, and in return, we will bring development. Did it happen? No. The wealth left our soil, the poverty stayed behind. They now tell Gaza the same story. They say, give up your rights, give up your claims to Jerusalem, accept permanent settlements on your land, and in exchange we will build you factories and roads. My brothers and sisters, a people does not eat dignity, but a people cannot survive without it either. Economic promises cannot replace justice. A factory cannot substitute for freedom. A loan cannot substitute for liberation. Another loophole is the permanent legitimization of settlements that have stolen land inch by inch, olive tree by olive tree. This plan pretends to recognize reality on the ground, but whose reality? The reality created by bulldozers, by walls, by soldiers with guns in their hands? If a thief breaks into your home and squats there for 10 years, does that make him the rightful owner? If a stranger drives you into a corner of your own house and then offers you money to stay quiet, is that justice? But that is what this plan seeks to cement. Injustice turned into permanent arrangement, theft legalized, dispossession recognized. And then they speak of Jerusalem. They treat it as if it is theirs to give away, theirs to decide. They say, the holy city is united under the authority of one side, and the Palestinian people must accept scraps outside its gates. But it is not for one man or one state or one empire to monopolize. It belongs to its history, to its faiths, to its people. To deny Palestinians their place in Jerusalem is to deny them their heart, to cut their spirit in half. Can there be peace when the heart is denied? Can there be peace when holy ground is turned into a bargaining chip? I say to the world, this is not peace, it is surrender. And let it be clear, Africa knows this game too well. We were told to surrender our land for protection. We were told to surrender our languages for education. We were told to surrender our faith for civilization. We were told to surrender our sovereignty for modernization. And every time we surrendered, we lost more, until we stood up and said no more. The people of Gaza, of Palost, have said no more. They have refused to accept a future where their children are raised behind walls, where their passports are stamped with humiliation, where their land is mapped by foreigners. And I stand with them. Burkina Faso stands with them. Africa stands with them. But I do not come here only to criticize. It is easy to tear apart what others propose. I also come with advice, with vision, with conviction. For peace to be real, it must be based on justice, on equality, on mutual recognition, not on imposition. The world must abandon the illusion that peace can be bought with money while rights are ignored. Peace is not a business deal. It is a covenant of dignity between peoples. If the West truly seeks peace, then let them listen. First, recognize the right of Palestinians to full sovereignty over their land, not a half-state, not a collection of enclaves, but a state that controls its borders, its air, its water, its resources. Without this, all talk of peace is noise. Second, dismantle the settlements. If you say you want peace, then stop expanding walls of division. No man can negotiate his future while a bulldozer stands at his door. Third, ensure that Jerusalem is shared, respected, treated as a city of all faiths, not the possession of one. Peace without justice in Jerusalem is no peace at all. Fourth, guarantee the right of refugees to return or to be compensated with dignity. For too long, their exile has been treated as if it were temporary, yet generations have passed. A wound left untreated does not heal, it festers. Some will say these demands are unrealistic, too bold, too uncompromising. But I ask, is it realistic to demand a people give up their dignity forever? Is it realistic to expect grow in cages and not resist? Is it realistic to think you can build peace on oppression? The only realism is justice. Without justice, you will have endless plans, endless summits, endless signatures, but no peace. And let me tell the West, the powerful, the architects of these deals, if you truly want peace, Africa is ready to help. I, Ibrahim Traoré, am ready to play my role. We have lived oppression. We have lived colonization. We have lived the lies of development that robbed us. We have fought for freedom, and we know the price of dignity. If you want mediators who will not be bought, who will not be intimidated, who will not place business before justice, then turn to Africa. Let us help build a peace that is not false, not temporary, not one-sided. Let us guarantee that the oppressed are heard. If you are sincere, we will stand by you. But if you only want us to rubber stamp injustice, then we will expose you. We will denounce you. We will refuse your chains. To my brothers and sisters in Palast, I say, do not despair. You are not alone. Your suffering is seen. Your struggle is shared. To the fathers who cannot provide bread because of the blockade, to the youth who dream only of freedom, I say, Africa remembers you. Africa supports you. And to the people of the West who truly want peace, who do not want to see their governments spread endless wars, I say, raise your voices, demand justice. Trump's plan may try to write history with ink of power, but history is ultimately written by the persistence of the people. No empire lasts forever. No injustice survives eternity. If today they try to silence Gaza with promises of investments, tomorrow the voice of resistance will return louder because dignity cannot be bought. And let me assure the world, the cause of Palestine is not isolated. It is tied to every people who fights for sovereignty, for freedom, for dignity. When Gaza is free, humanity is freer. When Palestine breathes, justice breathes. And until that day, let us all continue to say with one voice, this is not peace, this is surrender, and we reject it. If those in power are ready for true peace, let them prove it. Let them remove the chains, not polish them. Let them return the stolen, not justify the theft. Let them sit at the table with equals, not with subordinates. Then and only then will peace come. And when it comes, Africa will be there not as a spectator, but as a guarantor, as a brother, as a witness that justice was done.
And with that powerful conclusion, Traoré leaves no doubt. True peace is impossible without justice. His voice is not just for Gaza or Palestine, but for all oppressed people across the world. The message is clear. Chains polished with gold are still chains, and Africa stands ready to tear them apart. Justice unfolded.